The Silent Civilization, a journey into the Indus Valley. Picture this, a civilization larger than ancient Egypt, more extensive than Mesopotamia. Cities that house tens of thousands of people, with running water in their homes and sophisticated drainage systems that wouldn't look out of place in a modern city. And yet, almost no one knows about it. No pyramids piercing the sky. No cuneiform tablets boasting of conquests. No statues of god-kings staring down through the centuries. The Indus Valley Civilization built one of humanity's greatest early societies, and then vanished from history so completely that for thousands of years, even its existence was forgotten. This is not a story of primitiveness. This is a story of a civilization that chose to speak in a different language entirely, one we're only now learning to hear. Part 1. The Invisible Empire. Let's start with what we do know. Around 3300 BCE, as the first pharaohs were unifying Egypt and the first cities were rising in Mesopotamia, something equally remarkable was happening in South Asia, along the Indus River and the now-vanished Gagar-Hakra, possibly the legendary Sarasvati River of later texts. Communities began to coalesce. Small villages grew into towns. Towns evolved into something the world had rarely seen, true cities. By 2600 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization had entered what archaeologists call its mature phase, and the scale is staggering. Over 1 million square kilometers. That's roughly the size of modern Egypt and Pakistan combined. More than 1,000 settlements. At least 5 major urban centers, each a triumph of planning and engineering. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dhalavira, Ganariwala, Rakhigarhi. These weren't crude villages. These were cities with populations in the tens of thousands, with sophisticated infrastructure, standardized instruction, and evidence of long-distance trade networks stretching to the Persian Gulf and beyond. And yet, for thousands of years after they fell silent, no one knew they had existed at all. Part 2. The Great Forgetting. Imagine being a British engineer in 1856, laying railway tracks across the Punjab in colonial India. You need ballast, rocks, and materials to support the rails. Your workers start dismantling old brick structures nearby. Ancient ruins, probably medieval. Who cares? Except these weren't medieval. These bricks were more than 4,000 years old. Unknowingly, British railway workers were demolishing one of humanity's oldest civilizations to build the infrastructure of empire. A few archaeologists suspected something was unusual. Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, noticed the strange antiquities coming from the ruins at Harappa, but the true significance remained hidden. It wasn't until the 1920s, barely 100 years ago, that excavations at Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro revealed the stunning truth. These weren't scattered villages. These were massive planned cities with standardized architecture, suggesting a level of organization that rivaled, and in some ways surpassed, the famous civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia. The discovery sent shockwaves through the academic world. Historians had to completely rewrite their understanding of South Asian history. This wasn't a region waiting for civilization to arrive from elsewhere. It had been one of civilization's birthplaces all along. But there was a problem. While Egypt had hieroglyphs and Mesopotamia had cuneiform, both deciphered, giving us direct access to their thoughts, their politics, their stories, the Indus Valley had symbols we couldn't read. The civilization that had been forgotten once was now discovered, but still, fundamentally, silent. Part 3. Cities Without Kings. Stand in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro today, and the first thing that strikes you is the order. Streets laid out in perfect grids, intersecting at precise right angles. Not the organic sprawl of medieval cities, but geometric precision that speaks of deliberate planning. Urban design on a scale rarely seen in the ancient world. And the bricks. Everywhere, standardized baked bricks in a consistent ratio, roughly 4:2 to 1 in length, width, and height, not just in one city, but across the entire civilization, from the coast to the interior, separated by hundreds of kilometers, the same brick size. Think about what that means. Someone, somewhere, was establishing standards, and those standards were being followed across a territory larger than most modern countries. But when you look at individual houses, you see something else: variety within uniformity. Multi-room structures built around internal courtyards, private bathrooms, careful attention to airflow and light. These weren't identical worker barracks. These were homes designed for families, for privacy, for comfort. Here's what's missing: palaces. In Egypt, you can't miss the pharaoh's residence. In Mesopotamian cities, temples tower over everything else. But in Indus cities, the skyline is remarkably uniform. Yes, there are larger structures, the so-called Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro granaries, assembly halls, but nothing that screams, "I am the king's palace, bow before me." No royal statues gazing imperiously at the populace. No grand tombs filled with treasures proclaiming the eternal glory of rulers. No inscriptions declaring, "I, King so-and-so, conquered this land and smote my enemies." This absence is not an accident. It's not because we haven't found the palaces yet. We've excavated extensively. It's not because erosion destroyed them. Other structures survived. This appears to be a civilization that simply didn't express power the way others did. Some scholars have proposed that the Indus might have had a more collective form of governance, perhaps councils of merchants or religious leaders rather than absolute monarchs. Others suggest that authority was so culturally embedded that it didn't need monuments to enforce it. The truth is, without texts, we simply don't know. But the absence itself tells us something profound. Civilization doesn't require god kings. Urban sophistication doesn't demand pyramid builders. Part 4. The infrastructure of greatness. But if the Indus people didn't build monuments to rulers, what did they build? The answer is everywhere, literally beneath your feet. If you're standing in an Indus city, let me describe a typical middle-class home in Mohenjo-Daro, around 2500 BCE. You enter from the street into a small vestibule, not directly into the main living area, preserving privacy. Beyond that, rooms arranged around a central courtyard, giving light and air to interior spaces. Stairs leading to a second story, now collapsed. And in the corner, a bathroom, not a chamber pot or an outhouse, an actual bathroom with a drain. That drain connects to a vertical pipe in the wall, which feeds into a covered drain running beneath the street. The drain has inspection holes at regular intervals for maintenance. It connects to larger drains, all flowing to collection points outside the city. This is not medieval technology. This is not even early modern technology. Many European cities didn't have proper sewage systems until the 19th century, nearly 4,000 years after the Indus had perfected it. Water in, wastewater out. Public wells dotted throughout residential areas, sometimes one for every few blocks. Clean water access wasn't a privilege. It was infrastructure. And at Dalavira, on the edge of the arid Rana Kutch, the water engineering reaches another level entirely. Massive reservoirs carved and built to capture every drop of monsoon rain. A series of dams and channels to control seasonal flooding. Water management on a scale that speaks to sophisticated understanding of hydrology and long-term urban planning. The Egyptians moved millions of tons of stone to build tombs for kings. The Indus people moved millions of bricks to build bathrooms for citizens. The Mesopotamians built ziggurats reaching to the heavens. The Indus dug wells reaching to the water table. It's a different definition of civilization entirely. One that asks, What if greatness isn't about how high you can build, but about how well you can live? This was a civilization that looked at the problems of urban life, waste, disease, water scarcity, and solved them with such elegance that their solutions would be recognizable to any city planner today. They didn't build monuments to last forever. They built systems to sustain life, day after day, year after year, century after century. And that might be the most impressive monument of all. Part 5. The Economy of Silence, 1530 to 1800 hours. But cities don't run on good drainage alone. They need food, materials, trade, an economy. The foundation was agriculture, tied intimately to the rhythms of the monsoon and the flooding of rivers. Wheat, barley, dates, melons. In the later period, cotton. The Indus may have been among the first civilizations to cultivate and weave cotton textiles. Extensive cattle herding provided meat, milk, leather, and labor. The zebu, the distinctive humped cattle of South Asia, appears frequently in Indus art, clearly central to economic and possibly religious life. But the Indus wasn't just an agricultural society. Its craftspeople produced work of extraordinary quality and variety. Carnelian beads, some no larger than a grain of rice, drilled with precision using technology we're still not entirely sure about. Pottery painted with geometric and naturalistic designs. Bronze tools and weapons. Elaborate shell carvings and ivory work. And here's where it gets interesting. Standardized weights. Not just in one city, but across the entire civilization. Cubical stones in precise ratios, 1, 2 for 8, 16, 32, and so on, up to 12,800 units. This is evidence of regulated trade, of common standards across hundreds of kilometers. It suggests either strong central authority maintaining these standards or a deeply shared cultural commitment to fair dealing. And the trade networks extended far beyond the Indus itself. Indus seals and goods have been found in Mesopotamian cities. Mesopotamian texts from the period mention trade with distant lands called Dilmun, Magan, and Melah, the latter almost certainly referring to the Indus region. We know they traded carnelian beads, ivory, timber, cotton textiles, and possibly peacocks, all flowing west of the cities of Mesopotamia. In return, silver, tin, and other precious materials flowed east. The seals themselves were probably trade tokens, stamps of authenticity or ownership pressed into clay to seal containers of goods. But unlike Mesopotamian merchants, who left us detailed records of contracts, prices, and disputes written in cuneiform, Indus merchants left us only the brief symbols on their seals, a few signs, perhaps a name, a title, a destination. We don't know. The economy functioned. Trade flourished. Standards were maintained across a vast territory. But the records, the numbers, the negotiations, the daily business of commerce remain locked away, written in symbols we cannot read. Which brings us to the heart of the mystery. The reason this civilization, for all its sophistication, remains fundamentally unknown to us. The Indus Valley people had writing. We can see it on their seals, their pottery, their tablets. We can count the symbols, a few hundred distinct signs. But what did they write? What did they say? What did they think? That answer lies hidden in the greatest puzzle ancient history has yet to solve. The Indus script, undeciphered, unbroken, silent.